College football's back. College football's back. Let's go, baby. I'm so excited. We're going to go over some of the games today, as well as a new top 25 and some of my favorite prospect performances over the weekend. It's football, bro. We're back. Let's go ahead, get into this sucker, as we're going to be talking, of course. Well, let's start with my boys, the Canes, the Hurricanes. Yes, they go into the swamp. They drain the swamp. They beat the absolute brakes off of Florida. This was a great game for the Hurricanes to show in a relatively, what's appearing to be a relatively weak ACC that, hey, this is ours for the taking. This is ours for the taking. Cam Ward, it was a little bumpy at first. He had that early interception, rolling out, throws across his body, kind of shorts arm the side throw, easy pick, enemy territory. The defense stepped up huge in this matchup. They played really good football outside of, well, that Montrell Johnson, 71-yard touchdown. They played a really good game. The defense played a great game for the Canes. Cam Ward cleaned it up. I'm still a little queasy about his pocket poise. There were some cases where Cristobal, he kind of created a moving pocket there for Ward to kind of mitigate what he does in the pocket, but it was a phenomenal outing. Like, after the interception, he just turned it on, and it was just utterly phenomenal. I had a great time watching this game. Florida, we know the schedule's hard, but this wasn't a great look. Graham Mertz probably had his worst game as a Gator, eventually gets hurt later in the game, and they had no offense. No answers. No offense, no answers. Again, aside from the big run, did what? I'll tell you what. They did nothing. Hurricanes looking good to start the year. I'll talk about Tetairoa McMillan's insane performance, though I do want to comment real quickly about Arizona. Defense has got to clean it up. New Mexico put it on 39 points. Not going to be good enough to win the Big 12. Not going to be good enough to win the Big 12. Let's move on to Clemson, Georgia. This game was 6-0 at halftime. And I was like, hey, Georgia, they're letting Clemson, they can let Clemson back into this ball game. Clemson offense just got to come alive at some point. It's just got to come alive. And I remember saying at half, doesn't feel like they ever will. I think this could be like a 27-10, a 30-10 ball game. They end up not even being able to get the touchdown. And this wasn't on just Cade Klubnik. Cade Klubnik played a relatively all right game. Like, he didn't really put the ball in harm's way. Sure, there were a couple instances here and there. There were some inaccuracies with the deep ball. But this team is devoid of stars. Like, Antonio Williams went out, balled out, looked good. Brinstool? Oh, he had a drop here, but, like, I thought they were going to target him a bit more. He ended up having, all of maybe, 6 targets in the game? Let's take a quick gander. Brinstool ended up having 4 targets in the game. Excuse me, but he did have the drop. Had 3 receptions, 26 yards. Like, there's no playmakers on offense. Poor Maffa, he was trying to do the best that he could, but Georgia won the trenches. Simple as that. And you know what? The defense played a good game. They played a good game. But with the ineptitude of the offense, you're going to keep putting the defense out there. They can only do so much. They got gassed in the second half, and Georgia ran away with it. They were able to click. Now, it doesn't appear to be a go-to playmaker right now on that Georgia offense. I think Beck's most targeted guy was Lovett, but yeah, he was able to throw it around. and and get the job done. I think he targeted like 10 or 11 different pass catchers in this game. Frazier had a solid game running the football, had a couple of drops in the receiving game. It's not his shtick. It is what it is. What he did on the ground, though, was pretty darn good. Georgia, they don't necessarily have time to kind of figure it out on offense, but I mean, honestly, for a team that was like feeling them, they were kind of feeling it out in the first half, and they were like, you know what? Let's just come out, let's play clean football. They did. Defense, they did their job. They were wonderful. Malachi Starks, insane looking interception. And again, I want to give props to the Clemson defense. They held out for as long as they could. It's just the offense never showed up. And you know what? I'm not going to say the offense is piss poor for Clemson. I don't think that's the case. Georgia would make a lot of teams in the FBS look like this. They would make a lot of Power 4 teams look like this. I think when we get to the ACC play, the offense will look a bit better, but they are devoid of talent, of playmakers offensively, unfortunately. I don't think that's going to be good enough in the ACC, but it might. Again, I don't know. Do I put all my eggs in the Miami basket? I never put all my eggs in the Miami basket. I'm just waiting for disappointment. It's happened year after year. Never won the ACC. But we'll see with Clemson if they could clean it up. Ignoring the transfer portal for so many years might be starting to catch up with Dabo. Dabo might be a man out of time at this point. It just might end up being the case. But Georgia, I kind of have faith that they'll right the ship. They'll figure it out on offense. They get Trevor Etienne, I think, back next game. They kind of said he was, suspended indefinitely. But most people that I've talked to said it's like a 1-game suspension. Not worried too much. All right, let's talk about Idaho, Oregon. Some of these top 25 teams came out and it didn't look clean. And you know what? It won't always in week 1. It won't always look clean. This is week 1. This is kind of the feeling out process. You're trying to iron out some of these wrinkles you got, whether it's offensively or defensively. Defensively, Oregon was great in this game. You had many, many different players step up and show out. We go to the defense real quick. You had DJU's brother, Mateo. He balled out 5 pressures, 2 sacks. You had Jordan Birch, 5 pressures, 1 sack. Like, the defense played hella good. But offensively, like, you had people looking at the box stats wondering, what the hell is going on? This team is putting up yards. They're putting up statistics. Why aren't we scoring? And I remember it was during I think that Miami Florida versus Florida stream, because again, we did a watch along. We'll be doing watch alongs this weekend as well. We're gonna do, of course, Michigan, Texas. We'll talk about Michigan in a second, and we'll be doing NC State, Tennessee, because I want to see Nico in real time. But when you go to that box score, you start looking at the play by play, and you're like, oh, they're moving the ball. But they have they had some drives end just abruptly. And I went back, watched the game, and it was a little uninspiring. Like, you look at like Dylan Gabriel, and it's like, oh, 380 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a great game. Never put the ball in harm's way, and adjusted completion percentage of 87.5%. But averaged up the target. 4.3 yards. Okay, so, I mean, that's Oregon. Put the ball in the hands of your playmakers. Let them make moves. And just play mistake-free football, right? Just play mistake-free football. Yeah. Playmakers didn't really come through. Like, Tez had a good game. Terrence Ferguson had a really good game. Evan Stewart, he was like 3 receptions, 15 yards? All right. we'll wait and see. Again, this team's ironing out some of the wrinkles, but they were able to move the football. You had, I think, a couple, maybe 2 or 3 drives end on like turnover on downs. You had a missed field goal. They had a fumble. Like the team moved the football. Oregon moved the football. They just had drives end abruptly. In Idaho, they never. While Idaho definitely struggled as they should. This is Oregon, ranked 3 Oregon. They did enough to stay in the ball game. Overall, the cream rose to the top, as Macho Man Randy Savage once said, as the talent rose to the top and they were able to seal the game. But they definitely got some areas they got to iron out offensively. All right, let's keep moving. What we got? Texas. They ran through Colorado State. You had a lot of these cupcake matchups. Alabama rolling through Western Kentucky. I think Milroe had all of 9 passes. Ole Miss ran through Furman. Let's talk about the Sunday or the Saturday night game. Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Offensively, ugly. This game was ugly. This was a defensive showdown. It felt like who would make the least mistakes would win the ball game, and that wasn't necessarily the case because Notre Dame kept shooting themselves in the foot. When they'd start moving the football, they'd start committing the penalties. Were they all good penalties? They certainly weren't. Certainly weren't all good penalties. I don't think the refs had a great game here. I don't. But, man, going into halftime, 6-6. Holy stinking moly. Okay, maybe we got something. Maybe the offensive will come alive. Maybe the quarterback play will get better. It didn't. I'll talk about Connor Wigman later on. Not a great performance. I get it. He missed almost all of last season, only played 4 games last year. But for a lot of people, like, he was a very hyped up prospect. And I think he will look better later in the year. Just wasn't a good game by him. It's downright awful. Not like Riley Leonard put up a great performance. If he wasn't doing it with his feet, he wasn't really doing it at all. Like, Bo Collins came out, was a good pass catcher for him. Where was Mitchell Evans? I guess he's still nursing the ACL injury. We ended up seeing a different tight end by another name. Who was the tight end again? Because I think it's number 87. I don't have his name down. Oh, that's right, Flanagan. He ended up being the most targeted tight end on the night. Even Eli Raridon, he wasn't targeted much. So, like, okay, from a pass catcher perspective, Notre Dame's got some things to work on. Riley Leonard's got some things to work on. The run game for both teams kind of what decided this. And Notre Dame's run game ended up coming out on top, as you had both Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price have good games here. Love ends up going for 14 carries, 91 yards, a tutty, 10 forced missed tackles, yards after contact, 4.14, 4.14. That's probably a better way to say it. Price, 8 carries, 44 yards. He kind of had the money shot, the long shot. He brings a little explosiveness to this offensive, or to this Notre Dame offense. 6 forced missed tackles, 6.38 yards after contact. There we go. And I mean, the tackles, I'm not going to say the tackles were perfect for Notre Dame. They're young, they're inexperienced. They took their bumps and lumps, but they played a better game than their counterparts on the other side. A&M had some struggles. I do think A&M's running back there, Le'Veon Moss, played a really good game, did what he could. But at the end of the day, A&M couldn't do anything. They just couldn't do anything. Both defenses played a great game. Both teams, quarterback play needs to look a hell of a lot better. Fortunately, the Notre Dame offense was able to take advantage of Riley Leonard, what he could do on the ground. Ended up having 64 yards rushing. You look passing for Riley Leonard, wasn't great, 73.1. Just a completion percentage. That's not a terrible number. That's not a bad number. When your average depth of target is 5.5 yards, it's a horrible number. It's not great. It's like he doesn't have the horses to create after the catch. But a good job by Notre Dame. The defense looked great. The offensive line looked encouraging. And to be honest, this was probably one of their hardest games of the year, and they open it up. The schedule does get a little bit easier. It doesn't mean that there's that they don't have some potential losses left on the schedule, like USC suddenly looking a lot scarier. You have Louisville. You don't sleep on Louisville. They blew out Austin Peay. You have Georgia Tech. I believe in Georgia Tech. What can I say? But let's keep the sucker moving. Penn State, West Virginia. I only saw, not highlights, but I saw like a condensed version of the game. Didn't go through it play by play. They had the rain delay. West Virginia, from what I saw, they just shot themselves in the foot a ton. Allard played a good game. The offense for Penn State looks pretty darn good. I love the OC there for Penn State, former Kansas OC. Did great. Let's talk about Michigan, Fresno State, because I was very fascinated. I wanted to know what the hell exactly was going on here with Michigan. And they're in trouble this week against Texas. I don't know how Michigan will score consistently. Luckily, they got a hell of a good defense. They kind of rode the defense in this game. I mean, the defense ended up scoring points, like Will Johnson with the pick 6. Came up big. But golly gee, the offense. Where art thou, offense? See? Gojo's mad about it, right? Right, Gojo? Come on, buddy. He's frustrated. Gojo's ticked. Where was the offense for Michigan? And it all starts at the quarterback position, obviously. You had Orgy. He ends up losing the job to Warren. Warren, it wasn't great. It wasn't out there making big-time throws. He was just trying to keep the ball safe. But there's no wow to this offense. There is no wow to this Michigan offense. Like, they're not going to do it from the quarterback position. And you were like, well, last year they were a team that didn't have to get it done through the quarterback position. Well, hey, JJ, he came up in clutch moments. In some of those bigger games, he came up in clutch moments. But they at least were able to ride a good running game. And they just don't have a good running game. They replaced 5, technically kind of 6 starters on the offensive line. And you saw it. And it's painful. Donovan Edwards. Where art thou, Donovan Edwards? 11 carries. 27 yards. No forced missed tackles. 1.64 yards after contact. That's an ugly number. If you're below 3, then it's like, ugh. Okay. It's not the end all be all. If you're below 2.5, get the hell out of here. What the hell's going on? And it's not like he did it in the receiving game. What, 2 receptions for like no yards? 2 receptions for no yards. Donovan Edwards, where art thou? The main back there was Mullins. He had 15 carries, 92 yards, 5 forced missed tackles. Relatively solid game. But there's no explosiveness to this offense. This is why we saw no scoring. And this was against Fresno State. Don't sleep on Fresno State. That's a good team out in the Mountain West. That's a good Fresno State team. Should have never been this close for this long. Mind you, this game was 13-3 entering the fourth quarter. Not great. I don't feel good about Michigan playing Texas. Even though it is in Ann Arbor, I don't feel good about it. I don't think they don't have the horses to keep up with Quinn Ewers and company. They just don't. Defensively, you're kind of hoping, can they get... Now it's like defensively, it's not just can you get it done, Michigan. Can you maybe help create some points for us? Michigan was good. Josiah Stewart had a great game. I'll talk about him a little bit later. But yeah, man, rough showing for the Wolverines, and now you have to take on Texas. It doesn't feel great. Doesn't feel great. All right, let's move on to the Sunday game, and I'll briefly go over the Labor Day game because I'm not gonna lie to y'all, there ain't much to talk about. There's not much to talk about. All right, so LSU USC. It was a bit lower score than we expected. Both defenses played really good football. They played really solid. At the end of the day, it came honestly down to which team was more willing to take chances. And that answer is USC. And when I talk about the difference, I mean, we're talking about a very minuscule difference. Like Garrett Nussmeier, he went out there, he played well. 28 completions on 38 attempts. 78.4 adjusted completion percentage. One big time throw. Interception. Not on him. That's all right. That's fine. Miller Moss, on the other hand. Miller Moss, not going to say he was perfect with the football, but he was willing to go out there and not necessarily make mistakes, but he was willing to go out there and win the game. He ended up having 5 big time throws. Hell yeah. You do you. 81.8 adjusted completion percentage. They played winning football. You had LSU. They had drives like constantly in third down situations. Checking down. I hated it. Kyron Lacey played really well. Had a big first half. And then how do you not utilize that guy in the second half? Not saying they didn't throw his way ever in the second half, but they just didn't utilize him enough. But if anything, I feel very encouraged by both defenses. USC put freaking Gentry on the field more. This guy was everywhere. He was freaking everywhere. And he's just someone that you rotate in. Played only about, 50% of snaps? Just under 50% of snaps? That's disgusting. Keep that guy on the field. Gentry's a freaking moneymaker for you. Go do your thing. But ended up having Anthony Lucas, big game. I will say Emory Jones kind of it wasn't a great showing to start the year. I'm sure he'll look better as the season goes on. This is week 1. I try not to be too critical week 1 when it comes to prospects. But yeah, man, this was a money performance for USC. They needed this. LSU, their better days will come. They have an easier schedule coming up. I believe their first real game of consequence, or at least game that probably say, okay, maybe they lose this, will come up against Ole Miss, and they even have a bye, I believe, before that week. Yeah, they do. But they get Nicholls State this upcoming week. Then you get another USC, South Carolina, who, hey, had to win it at the end of the game at home against Old Dominion. Yeah, I'm not taking the South Carolina team serious, at least offensively. They get UCLA. UCLA played Hawaii pretty close. I'm just saying. And then Southern Alabama. Before they have to travel, not even travel, you get Ole Miss at home, and you're coming off a bye before that. So I'm feeling pretty darn good. We're gonna get into my college football top 25 now that we got a week of football in the books. But first, I want to go to the chat. I want to talk to y'all, see what's up. Walt, thoughts on Cam Ward beyond the stats? I'm going to talk about him when we do the stock report. We got cute anime. Do love me some cute anime. Says, not gonna lie, Denzel Burke is good, but I kind of look at him like an early to mid second. Maybe if lucky back into the first round. I'm kind of in the same boat there. Mackenzie, how do you think Auburn looked? They looked good. They looked the way they should have. Like what Auburn won like 73 to like 3 or something. Yeah, they ran through their cupcake game. Great, beautiful. Auburn's, again, You're not going to take much from these cupcake games outside of, hey, is the offense and the defense running well? Are we not making dumb penalties? Is the offense running on time? Are we not really? Are we not having a assignment or coverage bus in the on the defense? Like, honestly, that's the most you're gonna take out from a cupcake game in week one. You just want to be running on all cylinders for when the schedule does get a bit more difficult, because it will. They play in the SEC, but it was a good showing for Auburn. It really, really does. Who do I think the Chargers should draft? We're a little early for that. At this point, it's just kind of having fun putting players there, but you gotta imagine maybe something on the defense. Maybe even if they do want to go with wide receiver, they're not feeling great about the position. We'll see. We shall see. But before we do head to this next segment where I reveal my top 25 in college football, got to give a shout out to the sponsor of the stream today. It's Underdog Fantasy. Of course, I'm talking about Underdog Fantasy with the NFL kicking off this week. If you sign up using promo code Broshmo, they will match your first deposit up to $250? Hell yeah. But you do got to use promo code Broshmo. But with it being the opening week of the NFL, they got a hell of a lot of props going on. You can take advantage of many, many different specials that they got going on, whether it's a Travis Kelce free pick, a Dak Prescott free pick. I kind of like that. I don't need the Dak Prescott free pick. Just give me his over-under. I'll take the Kelce free pick. But they also have, for the Thursday night game, you get a 30% bonus on win-ins. So, they got it going on. They got you covered for the opening week of the NFL. So go ahead, check out Underdog Fantasy. If you are signing up, use promo code Broshmo. It not only helps the channel, but it helps you too. Let's go ahead. Let's get to this college football top of 25. As we're going to talk about our fallers. Yeah, that's right. We got a faller this week. Who would have thought? It's freaking Florida State. Listen, I could forgive the loss in Dublin. I really can. I liked Georgia plus 10.5. That's a scrappy Georgia team. Georgia Tech, excuse me, putting a little too much respect on their name. That's a scrappy Georgia Tech team. But then you go back to home and you lose in the fashion you did to Boston College, to Bill O'Brien and his debut there with Boston College. Yeah, you're starting the year 0-2. It kind of sucks. I'm pretty sure this is like the second or third time Mike Norvell has started the year 0-2 with Florida State. It's not a good feeling. This isn't the death nail for the Seminoles, whether it's winning the ACC and the college football playoff. It's not the death nail. The ACC is very winnable. I think you could lose 2 and make the ACC championship game. Problem is, now you've lost 2 conference games. So you're going to have to beat Clemson and hope they lose elsewhere in ACC play. You're going to have to beat Miami and hope they lose elsewhere in ACC play. The funny thing is, I think that's a likely thing to happen. The ACC is going to be very competitive because I don't think they're very good in comparison to some of the other conferences. Obviously, we're talking Big Ten, SEC, and dare I even say the Big 12. So again, not the death nail for the Seminoles, but I mean, if you really wanted to start behind the 8 ball, you sure did. They could not stop the rushing attack of Boston College, and Boston College's defense did a hell of a good job. Let's go over some of my teams that just missed the list. UNLV, man, beat down on Houston 27-7. Love it. At no point was that game in jeopardy. They played really good football. Watch out. Everyone's talking about Boise State in the Mountain West. We should be talking about UNLV, in my opinion. I think they're a really good team. They use the transfer portal pretty darn well. Tulane, they opened up the year with Southeast Louisiana, and they blew them out 52-0. They should be one of the favorites in the AAC. You got NC State. This is one of the teams that, yeah, they need to go back to the drawing board and iron out some of the wrinkles, because they played a relatively tight game for 3 quarters with Western Carolina. Not exactly a good look. They do eventually win 38-21, but you're going back to the drawing board, and you're going to have to do so quickly because Tennessee now comes to town. That Tennessee team, they looked darn near perfect in their cupcake game against Chattanooga. Georgia Tech, they're 2-0, beating Georgia State 35-12. Watch out for them in the ACC. I think that they're going to be that. I initially was like, I think Georgia Tech's probably going to be like a 7 or 8 win team, man. Watch out. They might be more. They might be more. Oklahoma, this is probably the team that is the most on the outside looking in. I know that they're a ranked team for most people. Again, when I do my top 25 at the beginning of the year, I actually go through the schedule. So strength of schedule matters to me. Opposed to how other people do it, where they're like, oh, this team good, this team go here. Nah. Let's project how we think this thing might look at the end of the year. And Oklahoma was one of those teams that I was like, I don't know if the toughness of an SEC schedule, if they might end up being like an 8-win team. Well, they looked good against Temple. The road's going to get harder. Let's see what they are made of. Let's go ahead, get to my top 25. Starting with 25, LSU. I'm not going to drop them just yet. They lost at the end of the game to a good USC team who we'll talk about in a second. This is a good LSU team. I'm not going to drop them out. I'm not. They lost again at the wire. So here they are at 25. Better days lay ahead for the Tigers. Like I said, they have a very promising schedule in the next few weeks before they head to, before they host Ole Miss there early on in October. Toledo, they went out, did their thing, beat Duquesne? Is that how you say it? But they blew them up 49-10. USC with the big win in Vegas over LSU. Love to see it. Got them here at 23. They were another one of those teams that they were basically the Oklahoma of the Big Ten for me. I had them as an 8-win team on the outside looking in. So, hey, maybe they're a 9-win team. Maybe they're a 10-win team. Who knows? UTSA, they got up early against Kennesaw State, and they kind of took their foot off the pedal. They ended up winning 28-16. Again, took the foot off the pedal, but wish they kind of won a little bit prettier than that. But it is what it is. Oklahoma State, they went out, did their thing, beat a very good South Dakota State team. Keep in mind, South Dakota State is the new North Dakota State of the FCS. They win 44-20. They also return the most starters, I believe, in college football, both offensive and defensively. So got them here at 21. They do have a bit of a rough patch in their schedule, though it's very winnable. I think the Big 12 is very much up for grabs. Moving on to 20, I got the Kansas Jayhawks. They went out, did their thing, took out Lindenwood, 48-3. Jalen Daniels, keep in mind the guy, he missed the later half of last season. He did look a little, we're going to call it rusted. But I imagine he will get better as the year goes on. Devin Neal had a great game. Clemson here at 19. Talked about him earlier. The offense, there's some concerns. Defensively, though, this is a very good squad. And I think it'll be good enough in the ACC to compete for that title. Got him here at 19. Kansas State started out slow against UT Martin. I was like, okay, Kansas State, when are you going to turn it on? What's going on here? Eventually they do. They end up winning 41-6. SMU, they looked a hell of a lot better than they did in week 0. Keep in mind, they ended up winning on the go-ahead deep pass to RJ Maryland against Nevada. They come out against Houston Christian, win 59-7. Great. Still running with 2 quarterbacks. Don't love that. And then in 16, watch out. Tennessee is legit. Maybe. Again, they beat up on Chattanooga. Let's see how legit they are. They travel to NC State. Don't sleep on NC State. I know they didn't look perfect in week 1. I still think that's a very solid team there. So, big game for the Vols coming up this week. 15, Louisville. They move up. They blew out Austin Peay 62-0. Great. The offense looked phenomenal. This was a team that brought in a hell of a lot of transfers this offseason. My Miami Hurricanes are now up to 14. You love to see it, and they are the front runners for the ACC. Hell yeah, Tyler Barron had a big game for him, especially after Ruben Bain went down. Haven't looked on the status of his injury. Hopefully it's nothing serious, but Miami looked great. They looked like the easy front runners for the ACC right now at this juncture. Arizona. Okay, offensively, no worries. Defensively, get it together, bruh. Get it together. Liberty. Oh, man. Okay, so Liberty, I get it. It was a messy game. They had the rain delay. They ended up beating Campbell 41-24. This is, I think, this team has one of the easiest schedules in college football. I think they should be a shoe-in to win. What is that? Conference USA? You got to look better than this. You return your quarterback and Salter. I still believe that they're the group of 5 team that ends up making the college football playoff. Oregon here at number 11. It wasn't pretty. I talked about it. I imagine they'll iron out some of those kinks. Kinks? Let's call it wrinkles. Maybe I don't want to say the word kinks. But I believe they'll iron out some of those wrinkles going into next week. That is a good football team through and through. Let's go to the top 10. As Penn State, great showing. Ends up beating the Mountaineers 34-12. They honestly, West Virginia shot themselves in the foot a ton. But they played great football. The defense looked great. Offensively, a lot going on there that I like. Watch out now. They should be in the running for the Big Ten. Texas, big game this weekend. A big opportunity to move way up my list. If they could get that win against Michigan, and honestly, it's looking a lot more likely. I feel really good about Texas this week. And now there's a lot more concerns with Michigan than I had going into the year. To be fair, probably should have had those concerns going into the year when you're replacing that much on the offensive line, when you're replacing your first round quarterback. Yeah, I probably should have thought that the offense would have taken a significant step back. But I also believe in the talent, and I just don't think Michigan could right the ship this early. It's going to be interesting. But Texas, they're going to be going to Ann Arbor. Big win there. Honestly, will move them up. Missouri, they won handedly against Murray State, 51-0. I think it was 51-0, or was it 51-3? Now that I think about it, I can't recall. It was indeed 51-0. That's right. Oklahoma beat Temple 51-3. Okay, we got Notre Dame. Talked about them and their cockfight there with the A&M Aggies. I like this team a lot. The schedule's not too crazy for them. I think even if they lose 2, they probably still make it. But at this point, it's like maybe Louisville, USC. Those are the teams. Even Georgia Tech, don't sleep on them. If they come out with 2 wins there, I mean, they're a shoo-in for the college football playoff. Utah came out, did their thing, won 49-0 against Southern Utah. Cam Rising looked great. 5 touchdowns. Love to see it. Top five. 5. We got Ole Miss here at 5. And yeah, they looked great. They destroyed Furman, 76-0. Everything was running perfect, as it should. You know what? Alabama, same. First verse, same. Or what is it? Second verse, same as the first. They basically did what Ole Miss did with less points. They end up winning big, though. They end up winning 63-0. The offense looked great. Defensively, they looked phenomenal. Michigan, golly, you know what? In my beginning season polls, I think I had Michigan way too high. I'm telling y'all, that Fresno State game really shook me. This is a team that's going to have to rely on their defense. And we could see something similar to Georgia Clemson, where the defense is able to hold back and mitigate this Longhorn offense in the first half. But if the offense for Michigan never shows up, that defense is going to get gas and the game's going to get away from them. So we'll see. We'll see. What they got that Clemson didn't was this is a home game in Ann Arbor. Ohio State, they were a bit slow out the gates, but eventually things worked out. They end up blowing out Akron 52-6. Okay, sure. Didn't look great early on offensively, but I'm going to be honest, I'm not too worried. They've got their stuff together. Again, those cupcake games are there designed to kind of iron out the deficiencies in the offense. Like, okay, let's get some of this, whether it's, again, timing, assignments, dumb penalties, play calling, iron some of that out. Georgia, listen, even when this team was like offensively was trying to just figure it out, they were still head and shoulders above Clemson. And by no means do I think Clemson is a bad team. I think Georgia, especially if they could find a playmaker. We kind of thought that, and I mean, they got a variety of very good players, but like, is it going to be like a Kobe Young that steps up? Is it going to be like could it be a Oscar Delp? Those stinking, who was the linebacker? Lucky? He was the guy that ended up being like the leading receiver there. It wasn't Yursek. It wasn't Delp. It was presumably their tight end 3. It was kind of nuts. But there's your top 25. You let me know what you think. I think this is a good looking top 25. I know some people are going to think I have some teams too high, some teams too low. Again, I do this before the season. I take into account the schedule. I go ahead, I project the schedule. This is what I got early on, and week by week, we will adjust it as needed. But it's time to get to the stock report. It's time to see how these prospects did in week 1 of college football. Before that, though, I do want to go back and give a shout out to Underdog Fantasy. I want to go over the promo that they got going on, the specials. Remember, if you sign up using promo code Broshmo, they will match your first deposit up to $250. And again, they got a lot of specials going on, man. They're gonna have a special for the Brazil game. Oh yeah, that's gonna be good. It's gonna be Green Bay. It's gonna be Philadelphia. They also have for Thursday Night Football. You get an extra 30% back on your winning bets. Listen, Underdog's a fun place to play, especially if you love player props, especially if you're a fantasy guy. Because if I'm gonna be honest, I'm just going in there saying, yeah, my fantasy guys, they're gonna hit that over. But it's a great time. It's a fun time. As always, please bet responsibly, bet within your means. Let's go ahead. Get into the soccer, as we're going to be going over how each, well, not each, but we're going to go over some of the prospects that either helped their stock or hurt their stock. I did include some fallers in this week of college football. But again, I'll go over it when we get there. Take it with a grain of salt. These guys could definitely bounce back after a lackluster week one. It is week one. So, and take it with a grain of salt. Let's go ahead, get into the stock report, starting with Kyle Monungai. Hell yeah. We're not getting into the Saturday games yet. I want to go over a few of the Thursday and Friday games. And Monungai against Howard played a good game, as he should. 19 carries for 165 yards. Had a tutty in there as well. He ended up having 6 forced missed tackles. Didn't do much in the receiving game. Had a reception for, I think, all of 0 yards. But that's fine. Monungai made my top 10 running backs at the beginning of the year that are draft eligible. And I'm a big fan of Monungai. I don't know what it is in the water. They're at Rutgers. These guys just run hard and run violent. And I just love that style. I really, really do. Monungai, he's got a little bit of that Isaiah Pachenko in him, where it's like, I don't think I want to tackle this guy, because I think he's going to hurt me. And hurt you, he will. Hurt you, he freaking will, man. He gets low. He shows good, just good vision, as well, as that was on display in the Howard game. Might not have the necessary home run speed, and obviously going to be limited in the passing game. It's kind of probably what doesn't put him over the top. But he did have a long of 39 yards, so you love to see it. You love to see it. Let's move on to another running back, Terrion Stewart, out of Bowling Green. He was a guy that I loved. He's a my guy. He is a my guy. He didn't make my top running backs list, I think, for good reason. There's some athletic deficiencies there. But in all honesty, at 5'9", 225 pounds, he's a power back. He knows it, and he's a little shiftier than you would expect. He reminds me of like LeGarrette Blount light. That doesn't sound right. Let's go with a quasi LeGarrette Blount. But he had a big game against Fordham, which, hey, you're supposed to have a big game, but it was very impressive. He ends up going for 14 carries for 159 yards, 3 tutties. Another guy that didn't do anything in the pass game. Not that he needed to, but had 11 forced missed tackles. Yards after contact, by the way, 9.79. Golly. Ooh, get me a fan. It's getting hot in here. Jeez, that's an insane stat. And it's not like, well, I mean it was against a team like Fordham. It is what it is. This dude last year, his forced miss, like his yards after contact, pull it up real quick, 4.81. Hella good. His missed tackle rate was insane. On top of that, 0.63. You're good with a 0.31. And he doubled that. He was like, yeah, no, I'm really good at forcing missed tackles. Like, he's got the bowling ball build. He shows good vision. He's got actually a pretty good burst. He's sneaky good athlete. It's just rarely used in the passing game. Kind of is what it is. And he's not going to have the long field speed or quicks, but he just is good back, which probably makes him a day 3 back, unfortunately. But he is definitely a my guy. I'm a big fan. Let's move to the defense. Talk about Wake Forest, Jasheen Davis. I feel like a guy no one really talks about, man. Like last year, he kind of got lost in the draft process, but he had a good year. 46 pressures, 8 sacks. And he started the year really good against North Carolina A&T. 6 pressures, had a sack. Pass rush win rate of 21.7%. Hell yes, sign me up. 6'3", 259 pounds. Honestly, kind of the biggest gripe I have with him is he's a guy that he gets by as a pass rusher. Not necessarily, like, he's not a guy with a lot of pass rush moves or necessarily a pass rush game plan, but he gets by on sheer grit, his motor, and just the violence that he plays with. And I mean violence. He probably is like an early day 3 pick, whether that's 4th or 5th round as it stands. But like the play strength's really good. The violence he plays with is really good. He's got a good first step. He plays with active hands. Again, the big motor, but doesn't have ideal length. Doesn't really have a pass rush game plan. Doesn't have many pass rush tools. Needs to get better as a run defender, but he looked good in this game with I think he ended up having around like 4 defensive stops. Those are basically tackles that result in either a negative loss or no gain. So I'm glad they looked good in a relatively cupcake matchup. Let's see how it looks during actual conference play. We're gonna keep the good vibes rolling. We're gonna talk about Shedeur Sanders, and honestly, I'm gonna talk about a few quarterbacks here, but let's start with Shedeur, as he had one of the earlier games. He ends up helping Colorado beat North Dakota State. Ends up winning that game. It was like 31-26. Took North Dakota State plus 9.5. Hit my parlay this week, my little 4-legger, so I felt really good about that. But he looked good, man. He looked good. He has probably the best processor in the class. Like Beck's right up there with them. I think him and Beck have a relatively similar arm strength, and very close in arm talent. I do think Shedeur probably throws with a little bit better touch, and like some of the bigger gripes that I have with Shedeur, honestly, it's the pocket poise, and the pass protection was much better. It was, and you definitely saw him look more comfortable in the pocket than he did last year when that offensive line was like booty cheeks. And when that happens, when you can't trust your offensive line, there will be times where you just vacate clean pockets, even though the pressure's not there. It's almost phantom pressure, just because you expect your offensive line to let you down. So you're already feeling like you're gonna have to go make a play. This time around, it definitely looks like he has faith in the offensive line, and the offensive line kind of delivered. When it comes to run blocking, neither here or there, they got some work to do. But at least when it comes to the pass protection, it was good. He ends up throwing for over 440 yards at 4 tutties. Did have an interception. I wouldn't necessarily put the pick on him. Thought he had a really good game. Had a adjusted completion percentage of 84.4%. He showed all the things you liked. He did. Apparently, Gojo's a big Shedeur fan. But while we're here, I do want to mention Beck. I think Beck had a good game too. Did it blow your pants off? No, it did. But it was like, hey, let's figure it out on offense. Let's try to play mistake-free. And they did. He ended up figuring it out. I'm not going to say he was all his passes were on time. I'm not going to say the ball placement was necessarily perfect. But he ran that offense really well in the second half. And I imagine as he develops that chemistry a bit more with some of his guys, whether it's like Dylan Bell, Kobe Young, I imagine that's going to be better because he is thrown to some new targets this year outside of like Arian Smith and Lovett. He is thrown to some new targets. All right, let's keep this sucker rolling as we're going to now get to the Sunday games. Now let's talk about Cam freaking Ward. Was it perfect? Hell no. It was not perfect. I didn't like the pocket poise. This guy was floating backwards in the pocket. He was escaping the pocket when he honestly didn't really have to at sometimes. And he would again, Mahomes made it popular. Just kind of and this is a total Madden thing to do where you just keep dropping back and dropping back and dropping back and dropping back, trying to escape and flee pressure. That ain't going to work. That ain't a consistent way to manage the pocket. I did say that Miami, they kind of saw some of the poise isn't just there yet. We want him to kind of work within the structure. We want him to throw from a clean pocket. So they started to scheme up some moving pockets for him. But he was definitely a lot more comfortable in the second half. And that was best Cam Ward, second half. He ends up throwing for over 380 yards, had 3 tutties, did have the ugly pick, basically rolled out of the pocket, threw across his body. One of the big things is I do think he throws with a bit of an ego sometimes, where he's confident he can make any and every throw. But he cleaned it up, man. He really did clean it up. Not even necessarily in the second half, but even late into the second quarter during that final drive. Man played a really, really good game. Adjusted completion percentage of 88%. It's just a ludicrous number. 4 big-time throws. Early on, he was winning with his legs. Florida tried to take that away. And you could tell that he definitely struggled early on with that. You could definitely tell when it was like, oh, wow, they're only bringing 3. They're dropping 8. Oh, they got spies on me. How the hell am I going to orchestrate this? How am I going to get out of this? I don't see anyone open. Am I going to really force a throw here? Like, oh. But he did a good job, man. I thought he did a good job. Let's see how the rest of the season goes. Already probably early favorite for the Heisman based on that performance. It was very, very encouraging from Cam Ward. I do want to give a shout out to Drew Aller. Was it perfect for him? It was pretty close to perfect. He had some really nice throws, some good back shoulders, the timing, the anticipation on some of those plays, some of those passes were nuts. I think it was that the touchdown pass before halftime. That where he throws it to a spot in the end zone when his receiver is just getting to the 5-yard line. That's anticipation. Like, oh, here's the landmark. Here's where my receiver needs to be. He just needs to beat the defender there. And he did. So it was a good showing. I think we're going to see, because we already know with Drew Aller, the tools, the physical, the athletic tools. Can he hone it in? This was a promising start. He's got the upside of a first rounder. He's got an upside. This quarterback class has the chance to be sexy. You just look at those top options with Shadur and Beck, and you're like, okay, maybe not the biggest arms, but golly, just their processors, how they run the offense. Oh, you just love it. It gives an NFL feel. Might not, for me, it's not top 10, though. I think it could get close. It's definitely going to be in that region. It's going to be in that kind of mid first round for me. But guys like Ward and Aller, I think, have a little extra stink where they can maybe be top 10 players. I think for now, I want to keep them maybe in that second round area. Kind of wait and see. Quinn Ewers, he had 1 interception, 1 bad decision, but outside of that, he played really, really good. Then Archie came in and played really, really good. But let's keep this sucker rolling. Let's keep moving. Let's talk about some record-breaking performances. Ashton Jeanty. Holy freaking moly. He's my running back 1. He's the only running back I got a first-round grade on. And if you're not new to the channel, you know me. You know me not liking running backs in the first round. Bijan is like, I think Saquon and Bijan were the only first-round running backs that I've had, I guess, since Saquon's draft. Let's go with that. Those were the only 2. Outside of that, I didn't have Najee. I didn't have Etienne. I didn't have Javante. I didn't have Gibbs. I didn't have Walker. I didn't have Brees. I didn't have those guys in the first. They were all top 50. Don't get me wrong. But for me, it was like, I looked at him and was like, I'll take those guys first half of the second round. For me, you gotta be something special. I think Genty's special. He ends up going 20 carries for 267 yards and 6 touchdowns. And let me let you know. And he couldn't get going in the passing game. He had 3 receptions, went for 4 yards, is what it is. But we know he's got the pass catching upside. But the dude had 11 forced missed tackles on those 20 carries. His yards after contact, 8.05. Golly gee. Light up the candles. Turn on some Barry White. Let's dim the lights. Let's have a little fun. That's the type of running Genty does. This guy's stop-start ability, his quicks, his balance, it's just all next level. This cat had a forced missed tackle rate last year of 0.38. His yards after contact, 4.52, is a ludicrous number. It's absolutely ludicrous. And if he cleans up on the fumbles, yeah, I think he for sure should be a first-round pick. I think he's special like that. Record-breaking performance for him there against Georgia Southern. Great showing from Genty. But while we're talking about record-breaking performances, we gotta talk about Tetero McMillan. 10 receptions, 304 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That's a great way to start the year. This is against New Mexico. He ends up just having a ludicrous game. I think he had 5 forced missed tackles as well. Didn't have a drop. Love the sure hands. Showing, hey, I'm more than this guy that can just go up and reel in the pass. And let's not act like it was perfect. The contested catch numbers were a bit of a letdown. He was 1 of 5 on contested catch opportunities. We're more used to this guy being a 50-50 ball guy. I'm sure that number will go up a little bit later. But, and I do say but, I love seeing the after the catch. I really, really do. Last year, what was his forced missed tackle rate? 13. Not rate, but he had 13 forced missed tackles on 90 receptions. He's already on pace to crush that. He's going to make a great case for wide receiver 1. It's going to be up there with Luther Burden, who had a great game. It's going to be up there potentially with Travis Hunter, which I know people were losing their mind. Oh my gosh, Travis Hunter had such a phenomenal game. It's against North Dakota State. And this isn't your dad's North Dakota State who used to run the FBS. It's not. But it was a great game. I'm not going to take that away from him. The dude's quick. He's fast. He's got good long speed. He had 2 forced missed tackles on those 7 receptions. Ended up going for 3 tutties, again, all against North Dakota State. We're gonna see Isaiah Bond maybe throw his hat into the race there, but I think Tetero McMillan probably has the best. Like him and I would start to lean like maybe McMillan as the best chance of being wide receiver 1. People do have some questions when it comes to Burden. I don't necessarily have those same questions, but because I'm just a stand for Burden. But yeah, guess what, guys? Wide receiver class. I know last year you felt like you got spoiled. Fun fact, it's good again. It's good again. All right, let's talk about some of the downers. Mansour Delane. I expect him to get better as the year goes on, but this wasn't the performance you wanted to see. I have him as a top 50 prospect. I expect him to get better as the year goes. Maybe you just had some of those week 1 yips. You had a case of the yips, but it wasn't a great showing for the corner, the 6'1", 187 corner. Coming into the year, we were like, he needs better anticipation. Feels like he could be a tick late. Want to see more ball skills from someone with his build and how athletically gifted he is. And we did not see that. He ends up allowing 5 receptions on 7 targets for 102 yards and a tutty. Didn't get his hand on the ball once. Did have a pressure in this game. Hey, there you go. But also missed tackle. Like, because keep in mind, this guy is a hard hitter. Like, it's not surprising they want to maybe utilize him a bit more around the line of scrimmage. He ended up having, I think, 4 tackles on the day. Had a defensive stop, had the pressure. And again, with his type of tackling style, you're going to have to live with a few forced missed tackles, but I'm more concerned about the coverage. Maybe we're just a little too early on Delane, as we maybe need to let him kind of work out some of the kinks in his game. As again, wasn't a great showing against Vandy. It just wasn't. And let's talk about an upper here. Josiah Stewart. Freaking phenomenal outing against Fresno State. 4 pressures, 2 sacks, had 6 defensive stops. He's like, yeah, you may look at that 240 and think I'm undersized because, well, I kind of am. I'm 6'1". My length might not be great. But I'll get after it against the run. 6 defensive stops. Just a great number. 50% pass rush win rate. Ludicrous. This guy won on half of his defensive or his pass rushing snaps. That's utterly insane. It's just insane to the membrane. Now, I think he's still in that early day 3 area, but he has a chance to maybe sneak into that day 2 discussion. Because, like, he was that talented coming from Coastal Carolina initially. He joined Michigan last year, and he was in the rotation. Last year, he ended up having 29 pressures and 6 sacks. I mean, the win rate was still really good with him, with 24.4% true pass rush win rate. Keep in mind, true just takes out RPOs, play action. It's like the truest form of, okay, this is just like a drop back pass, go out and get after it. Just takes away the influence of the run game. But he's a player that I think I'm gonna like, man. I think he might give people some that Muhammad Kamara vibes from last year, the Colorado State player that got drafted. I think it was the 5th round. He ended up 5th or 4th. He ends up going to the Miami Dolphins. But he's got the burst. He's got the bend. He's got that dog in him. Plays with a big motor. Okay, size. Not necessarily the play strength is a concern with him. It's just at that size, you'll just have a noticeable lack of play strength just by virtue of that. But man, I think I'm gonna be in on him. Let's see how he plays against Texas. See how he does against the Longhorns this week. And we're gonna end the list on a downer because, hey, that's real life. That's the real world. What can I say? It's Connor Wegman. Maybe we should have waited and seen before people hopped on the Wegman train. Not to say I was that guy. He's QB8. I had a 4th round grade. I didn't want to come back and see him perform healthy this season, and it was ugly. Ends up going 12 of 30 for only 100 yards and 2 interceptions. An adjusted completion percentage of 46.4%. He was missing everywhere. It was high. It was low. It was out in front. Had a couple of bad decisions. Had many bad decisions. Ended up having 3 turnover-worthy plays. It just wasn't good. It wasn't good. And he wasn't comfortable in the pocket. This was worse than anything we saw from him the last couple of years. Because I think he ended up starting the last 4 or 5 his freshman year. He started the first 4 last year before the injury. His average time to throw? 3.67. You can't hold on to the ball that long. Maybe you could get away with that if you're like Anthony Richardson or Justin Fields or Caleb Williams. But Wegman, you can't get away with that. I know he's a better athlete than you think, but he's not that good of an athlete to get away with holding on the ball that long. To be fair, he faced a really good defense. His receivers were not getting open. That led to him holding on to the ball a little longer than he should have. Now, there's no denying, let's not overreact here. I mean, I know some people are going to overreact. For me, I already had a 4th-round grade on him. So for me, it's like, okay, yeah, I can sit here, continue to have a 4th-round grade on him, wait and see how he does the remainder of the year. He is another guy with more years, I think another year of an eligibility. Yeah, he has, at the very least, I think he has one more year of eligibility, probably 2, if I'm being honest. But like the anticipation, it wasn't just he was late, he was inaccurate. Something I did notice, likes to throw from a shaky base. And I was like, that'll lead to you being inaccurate. And in this game, it was the case. He needs a little bit more experience, I will say. I did like that he wasn't eating hits, unlike Riley Leonard, who just loves eating contact. Wigman was smart with his body. That was kind of some of the stuff I was like, I didn't like about Wigman. Is he going to be injury prone because he just doesn't know how to slide? That he unnecessarily puts his body at harm. That is something that, at least in this game, he did a good job of, but not a great showing. I don't think it was a great showing for Riley Leonard, but fun fact, I wasn't that high on Riley Leonard either. So it is what it is. But let me know who were some of your favorite prospects this week in college football. I can't cover them all. I try to give you some of the guys that caught my eye for good or for bad. But I'm not gonna talk. I can't talk about all of them, or else this is gonna be like a 3-hour stream, a 3-hour video. But let me know who were some of your favorites in the comment section below. If you want more draft content, of course, I got more draft content. Just check the channel. If you want a nice watch list of players, check the channel or get my draft guide. What a plug! What a plug! But let's go ahead. Let's say our goodbyes. Thank you for joining me today. I believe there is one comment I want to get to before I end the stream from Info BK here. He's asking how Kyron Hudson played. And I mean, I'm trying to remember. Is that the receiver from USC? Because I remember seeing Branch a ton during that game. I remember seeing him. Oh, looks like, yeah. Okay, looks like he had a very solid game. Very nice. No drops. Was good at the test to catch. I don't know. I got to go back and watch that game for evals. Again, I only watched that game offhand while I was doing my draft, so I didn't go into it and watch it for the sake of evaluation. Though there were some things that were as plain as day, like, oh, Genty should be on the field more, and Emory Jones is having a rough outing to start the year. But yeah, maybe I'll go back. I'll add him to the watch list sheet. Kyron Hudson, he's eligible this year. Doesn't have a lot of production in his past, though, unfortunately. But to be fair, if he has 83 yards every game this year, I mean, the dude, his highest receiving yard total in any given season was 189. So, okay, that's going to be fascinating. Yeah, you know what? I'll go back and I'll watch him. I'll go back and give him a quick. I don't know if I want to give him eval with that small of a sample size. But I mean, I'm gonna go back watch the game anyway. So yeah, I'll go ahead and give him a watch this year for you, Info BK. But thank you for joining me. It's been fun as always. Remember, every Monday we're gonna be recapping college football, going over my updated top 25, as well as going over my stock report, guys who did well and some guys who did poorly. Tuesdays, normal Tuesdays, we're going to be doing NFL recap for the week. I'm thinking maybe tomorrow we'll do a stream doing a preview of this week in the NFL. Why not, right? Why not? Let's preview each and every game. But thank you for hanging out with me today. If you do want to see the audio form of this podcast, maybe you just want to listen to it on the go, then you could check it out on any of the audio platforms are the podcast and platforms. This will be on. It'll actually be right. It'll be up in the next couple of minutes as I upload it. But thank you for hanging out with me. I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Later. As I awkwardly sit here and hit the end of stream button. Later.